Yes, people have huge limiting beliefs around money. You see people who have more than enough, who are always afraid that there won't be enough. And you see people who can't keep money. They keep spending it. They can't save. And typically that is limiting beliefs from their childhood somewhere. They have taken over behaviors from their parents or other important people in the early days of life. Um, so the whole idea that there isn't enough will, in a way, stop you from going forward.
We're your co-hosts, Vicky and Laura, and this is the Resilient Entrepreneurs Podcast, the ultimate guide for ambitious business founders and startups. Hear from business heroes who've faced unexpected challenges as we unpack how they slayed their dragon and reignite your instinct to conquer your dragon.
Entrepreneurship started for me, I think, about when I was 18 years old, which is a long time ago. I don't know if I want to tell you how long ago, but really a long time ago. I was actually studying computer science. And well, when you're studying, you typically don't have a job, but I did need some money. I was living in Amsterdam, and with two good friends, we started our own company. Now, of course, that was not a company that we had to live from. We didn't need the money to live from. It was just to have a nice time as students. But we were entrepreneurs. We had a little firm, and the three of us built computer software, all kinds of assignments here and there. I suppose most interestingly, at the end of our studies, we liked working together, and we just looked at each other and we said, why don't we just continue our company? So I suppose from being a student entrepreneur and it not being for real in a way, because you don't need to live from it yet, it became a real entrepreneurship because we decided to continue and to start our careers by being an entrepreneur.
I think that's what we'd call a side hustle these days.
Side hustle, yeah, that's a nice word for it.
That's great. So, such an early age, you were already thinking about solving people's problems, about being in business for yourself. What was it that called you to that entrepreneurial quest?
I suppose the first calling was really that there was that opportunity, we just like to do it, and there was no pressure. So I suppose that it was more like a way to work together and to earn a little bit of money to have a nice time being students. And then towards the end of our studies, I suppose we started to love the fact that you are independent, that you can have your own ideas. And during studies, I never really thought about what my first job was going to be because, well, and we became those entrepreneurs. And in the last year of studies, we prepared for that company that we wanted to start together, that new company that was more for real. Um, I think my answer is really, we didn't think about it. It was just the path that we had to walk. So it just came by and we jumped on a train that appeared to be our train.
I love that so much. I'm such a big believer in young people learning about entrepreneurship and just trying it because I think you learn so many lessons in that. One, you just learned that it was possible, because you
Mm,
tried it, because you didn't have the pressure, you didn't have to take a big risk. You were just making some extra cash, as a student. And at the end of your studies, you're like, hey, we can make this a business. Tell us what those early days were like, because we know those early days of entrepreneurship are the most challenging as you're figuring everything out. And you had two partners. So, where were your challenges there? So tell us a little bit about that stage.
And then I go with the company that we built for real, because I suppose the challenges during our studies were not really there, at least not big challenges. The, the major challenge that we had is here you have three computer science nerds who had this terrific idea about touchscreens and information kiosks in musea and county halls and in all places to inform people. And nowadays you see them in a way everywhere. We were very early with that idea. because I'm now talking early 90s, which is like 30 years ago. So we were really very early with that idea. The challenge was we were computer nerds. We were not audience focused. We didn't think about our customers or their customers. We thought about this great idea and we could technically solve everything, every problem. Getting on in a meeting with the board of a company, of a big warehouse, for example, because that was a wonderful place to have those kind of information kiosks, that was difficult if you are young and you have a background in computer science. So I suppose the major struggle for us and the major challenge was, how do you actually sell this? You can have a wonderful idea, but is the world waiting for your idea? And if it is, can you get in touch with the right people that want your idea? There were competitors in our country for this idea, and they had a career behind them. They had years of experience. They were actually able to get to talk to the right people. And our original idea for the company, actually, after 6 months, our money had gone, and in a way, we were at the end of our own company. We then took turns, and we were able to continue, but that original idea we left behind because we were not able to sell it. I suppose that was a big learning for the three of us. It is not just about a great idea, it's about how do you actually implement it in the real world. I suppose that's what many entrepreneurs run into.
Yes,
Absolutely.
of course they do. And I'm hearing that so many aspects of that in the story you shared, Martijn, because, yeah, you have a great idea. You're solving a problem that the people you're solving it for don't even know they have yet.
Yes.
And then you talked about getting in front of the right people. And then my mind went to, even if you did get in front of the right people, did you have the skills and the experience to pitch it? Because when we are so wrapped up in the thing we love as an entrepreneur, we often pitch it the wrong way. You know, we pitch about the benefits and the features. We don't pitch about how it really solves a problem and start to sell that problem first and then the solution. Because most often than not, in our experience as marketers, the market that we're selling to doesn't always know that they have the problem to begin with. So this is a great story to illustrate that.
Hang on, hold that thought. I apologize for the interruption. I just wanted to take 15 seconds of your time to thank you for being a part of this growing community of resilient entrepreneurs. If you could do us just one massive favor and subscribe, you'll be notified of the next great episode of this podcast. And speaking of great episodes, let's get right back to it.
Yeah. And I suppose that audience first thinking is something I only learned many, many years later in my career. And with that, I think if I think back about the company, if I had known this and I actually had built up the skills to pitch it, maybe we would have been successful with that initial idea. Maybe not, who knows? But it is so important to think about actually the problems you want to solve and sell a solution for the problems that audience has.
Well, you know, if we were in person, I'd be asking for your autograph because we're sitting here with one of the guys who came up with touch screens, with info kiosks well before its time. And I think that's just exciting.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to be ahead of the curve a little bit too, because there's so many elements of that need to work. Like your marketing has to be really strong. Like you said, the sales have to be really strong because you've got to educate the market that they even need the product. And so that is a challenge a lot of entrepreneurs face because, like you said, you have the best idea, but if you can't sell it, then you run out of money as a business. You run out of money. And at the end of the day, you need to make profit. So tell us where the story goes from there. So what was the next stage of the journey for you?
Well, to keep the company alive, we got in contact with consulting companies. And the three of us agreed that one of us at the time would just go for a consulting job for 3 to 6 months or whatever the time was, to ensure that we had enough money, the three of us together, to be able to continue. And that at least saved us in the moment, so we could at least continue. And then we changed the idea. And we had a few smaller ideas that, well, typically we spend some time on and then you continue to the next one. After a while, we were asked, and that was lucky, maybe, we were asked to create a screensaver for a huge event that one of our clients has. And remember, this is the time where if you left your screen on too long, it would burn in and you would see the letters and everything still in the screen a couple of days later. So screensavers at that time were also a must-have for people. And this client, they wanted a very nice screensaver that was telling their picture about their new product, and they wanted to create it as a giveaway to a major event that they had. So here we were creating a screensaver with nice animations, a bit of a story, and then putting it on floppy disks and multiplying those floppy disks. So we had 1,000 or 2,000 floppy disks so that our client could give that away at an event. And this was a very first small step, but ultimately I would say we became screensaver king in the Netherlands. We created like 80 to 100 screensavers, all for clients, not just for fun, but all as marketing and communication collateral that firms in that time wanted to use as giveaways or small games as giveaways in supermarkets. And so, yeah, that was an interesting shift that we hadn't even thought of ourselves, but because we were quite technical and we had spoken to a lot of people in those first 6 months, there were just people who remembered us and who said, hey, but yeah, your idea we didn't want to continue with, but we do have another idea. And yeah, we rolled into a new market.
That's brilliant. I'm titillated that this whole thing from so long ago, it's bringing up all these old memories of floppy disks and
Yes,
screensavers.
it
And
is old
I
memories.
remember receiving screensavers as a giveaway. It's just so cute when you look back and think about it all. But it's great how you were able to be agile and pivot. And what I'm hearing is you were flexible. You had behavioral flexibility. You weren't stuck with, well, this is what we do and this is what we do. So there was some customer centricity already coming in at that level because you were focused on well, perhaps because they were coming to you with an offer that would pay, but also you're there still solving their problem. So love that.
Yes.
That entrepreneurial spirit lives on. So I'm dying to know, I don't know if there's many, many steps in between, but how does one get from being a computer programming engineer to PSYCH-K?
Ooh, there's many steps in between, but I can do the short version.
And then tell us what PSYCH-K is for our listeners,
Yes,
because
yes.
they're the uninitiated so far. But it seems to me quite a leap.
It is quite a leap. And at the same time, if I look back at my life, it is a small step. But yeah, if you're on a journey, every step is small. And then if you look back, there is this huge leap, of course, that you've taken. Let me maybe in a bird's eye view the career side and then tell you where I landed on. So after 7 years of being an entrepreneur, together with 2 friends, and we had a few people, we had a few employees, I decided that from a generalist, I wanted to become more of a specialist. So I left our own company and I became a program manager at a bank. And then from there, I continued in a couple of jobs, and ultimately, I ended up with a huge consulting and accountancy firm, Ernst & Young. And in the 20 years that I worked there as an employee, I rose through the ranks, ultimately to a directorship level. I ended my career there as a director of product management for the global marketing department, being responsible for all marketing products around the globe that Ernst & Young was using. In the journey towards the directorship, I had already found PSYCH-K. And PSYCH-K is a method to transform limiting beliefs into supporting beliefs. We all have certain limiting beliefs. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Do other people like me? Does my opinion matter? We all have limiting beliefs. Um, and while I was in my career, I was always very interested in personal development and personal growth or self-realization. There's many words to describe what I would say is more or less the same. It was about me. So I was never just focused on my career alone. I was always very interested in developing myself. And of course, there's practical skills like project management and program management and agile working, and there's all kinds of practical skills. But there is also more the soft skills that I was interested in. And together with my wife, we did tons of courses and trainings and all kinds of things like neuro-linguistic programming, transactional analysis, constellations, etc., etc. And then one day, my wife is a psychologist, and she was always looking for new methods to help her people, her clients. And she came home with PSYCH-K. And because she had just learned it, she wanted a guinea pig to practice with. And of course, I was the guinea pig. There was no choice there. And interestingly, this is 2013, so about 10 years ago. And interestingly, we did a couple of PSYCH-K exercises around some of the limiting behaviors I had, for example, around delegating my work or making my team more responsible or speaking up in certain meetings with high profile people at the table. And interestingly, I noticed change. And I was very skeptical in the beginning. I thought, I'm happy to practice with you, but I don't know what the benefit for me is yet. But I started to notice change in my life. And I've always been somebody who believes his own expertise, his own experience. So I thought, I want to know more about this as well. So while my wife became a PSYCH-K instructor, I did all the courses and I started to use PSYCH-K for myself. And then your question was, how did I end up with PSYCH-K as a full-time business? Well, when I was in my promotion to directorship at Ernst & Young, when you are in the journey is lovely. But once you are promoted, you get all those people who congratulate you on that day and the day after the same. And then 2 or 3 days later, that stops and the work begins again. And I more or less fell into a bit of a black hole. I thought, is this it? Have I done this journey of 3 years towards a certain position and a certain level within this big firm? And is this it? And I decided to look around, and I ultimately ended up that it was not everything that I wanted to do in life. I wanted more. And then together with my wife, who at that time was already a full-time PSYCH-K instructor and facilitator, we had many discussions, and I decided, instead of mostly applying my left brain as a product manager and a senior manager and a director in this huge consulting firm, I also want to use my right brain. And I decided to make a huge jump, becoming an entrepreneur again, now together with my wife, and becoming a PSYCH-K instructor and start to support people on their career journeys or other self-realization paths.
Wow. Your story's so interesting. To go from becoming an entrepreneur at such a young age to going into corporate. Usually it goes the other way around. People go into corporate first because it feels very safe. They have all the, things. And then at some point they just get burnt out from corporate and, come up with a great idea and go on an entrepreneurial journey. You kind of did it backwards, but then came back again to entrepreneurship. When you stepped back into teaching and entrepreneurship, did it feel a little easier? Like, did it feel a little like coming home again, or was it that same level of stress that most entrepreneurs feel, of stepping out into the unknown?
Yeah, that question has two sides and two answers, actually. Beautiful question. I think stepping out of that, stepping away from that huge consulting firm and into my own company was a blessing. Being the owner of my time again, and determining myself what I wanted to do every day instead of leadership demanding certain things that are quite logical. You're an employee, you have to do what the firm, you go into the direction that your firm goes. So stepping away from that and having freedom again, that felt beautiful. But as you just mentioned, Laura, there was no fixed salary anymore. There was no company car anymore. There was no bonus anymore. Yeah. If you work hard as an entrepreneur, you earn your own bonus, but it wasn't a given anymore. So I have actually used the method PSYCH-K itself to balance for all my insecurities of leaving my job and then becoming an entrepreneur together with my wife, because working together with your partner is also an additional element in being an entrepreneur, I think, and generally in life. So yeah, there was a lot to overcome actually. So there's really two sides to that question for me: a beautiful side and a side that needed attention and further growth as a person.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you had your own support in place for that, I
Yes.
think. And it speaks a lot to the power of partnerships. You know, you started with partnerships and you started this new business with a partnership with your wife. I think that's quite remarkable. Tell us about PSYCH-K. Can you break it down for anyone that's never heard of it? Give us some of the, details about what it is and how it works.
Yes, of course. Always happy to talk about that. PSYCH-K stands for, the K stands for key. So it's Psy, PSYCH-K. And it is, PSYCH-K is a method that is providing you the key to your psyche to free yourself from limiting beliefs. It is a psychological method, an energy psychological method to transform limiting beliefs into supporting beliefs. So if I typically subconsciously have these automated programs that other people don't really like me or I am not good enough, and that's the way I look at the world, then I will see proof of that everywhere. Because my filters will be um, um, will be using those limiting beliefs to see and to see the proof in what I believe. And PSYCH-K is then a method to change those limiting beliefs into supporting beliefs. So instead of living a life, I'm not good enough, I prefer to live a life that I am good enough, or I am the best version of myself, or I live my full potential, or whatever the supporting belief ultimately is. And it is a method whereby we do exercises, and those are called balances in PSYCH-K, whereby we typically want to balance both hemispheres of the brain. And Bruce Lipton, cell biologist, explains it very nicely. He says the first 7 years of your life, you are completely open to learning new experiences. Babies need to learn to keep their head straight. They need to learn how to crawl and to walk and to ride a bike. And then, you language. There's so much that we need to learn when we are small. And when I listen to Bruce Lipton, he says, when we are young, both hemispheres of the brain are fully active. And because both hemispheres are active, we are able to learn new things. And PSYCH-K as a method is going back to that fact. So during the balances, we activate both hemispheres of the brain to learn new things. So if I have learned when I was young that I'm not good enough for whatever reason, because we don't know what happened in the past exactly, and we don't know what our interpretations were. We just know that today I live with certain limitations. And then by activating both hemispheres of the brain, we can reprogram our subconscious mind so that it starts to live a different life. Example, I had difficulties delegating work. I'm a perfectionist, and for a perfectionist, delegating work is so difficult because your colleagues will never do it as good as you will. They might do it better, but you don't even see that because I'm a perfectionist, so it has to be done in a certain way, and if not, it's not good enough. Now, if you then want to become a director at a huge consulting firm, you're going to fail because you don't have time to do all the work anymore. You need your team to do it. So I did balances around becoming less of a perfectionist, like my team is doing a wonderful job. If I don't believe that, because I'm a perfectionist, I will never pass on work to them, or not enough at least. So then you do those exercises using PSYCH-K, integrating the supporting beliefs in your system, and you will see that your world will be changing.
Is there an element of hypnotherapy in this?
People we train who are hypnotherapists see some comparisons, but they also see a lot of differences because they use different techniques, and typically the PSYCH-K process is a bit faster because you don't have sessions of an hour and you go into hypnotherapy once, but you can do maybe 8 or 9 balances over the course of that hour, so you can more quickly transform your limiting beliefs. But there's definitely elements that are also the same, and hypnotherapy is also a method whereby belief change can be made, for sure.
How does one uncover what their limiting beliefs are?
We have a beautiful exercise when we do the workshop. Right after the workshop, we always offer a 30-day challenge whereby we help people to really integrate this method into their system. And the exercise is when you have that little voice in your head about a certain topic. Let's say I'm mad about my wife, or I'm mad with my children, or I am frustrated with something at work, and you have that voice going around in your head constantly. Take your phone and record yourself for 2 minutes, and just go bananas. Say everything that's in your head. Don't hold back. This is a recording only for you. If you say stupid things that you shouldn't be saying to other people, it's only for you. And then after 2 minutes, stop the recording, be neutral, and listen to your own voice. And you can typically take a pen and you can just write down all the limiting beliefs that you hear yourself say. Because you will hear yourself say things like, oh, I've done it wrong again, and you shouldn't be constantly making those mistakes. And you hear a voice like that. And if you tell yourself that you are constantly making mistakes, that's quite a limiting belief. Because most people make a few mistakes every day. We all do, but most of what we do is okay and is good and is perfect actually. So there's lots of exercises, and most people, once they understand how to get to their limiting beliefs, become quite good at finding them, or understanding that everything around us is a mirror for us, every person that we meet, and that you can derive your limiting beliefs from those others around you quite easily.
This is so rich, Martijn. It's exciting to hear about it, because when we work with entrepreneurs at any stage of business, at least in the first 10 years, I would say that what I describe as they have the brakes on. They have so much power within them. They have so much potential. They have so much creativity. They share that with us. And when they share it with Laura and I, we usually just blow it out of the water and say, how, this is actually how big you're sitting on this mountain. Do you see the mountain that you have? And they're like, whoa, because even that I see as limiting beliefs. They're thinking small, or they're thinking, who am I? That whole imposter syndrome thing. I swear that must be about limiting beliefs. Procrastination, I swear procrastination must be about limiting beliefs. Like, can you imagine if you listed all the things that slow us down as entrepreneurs? Probably 10 out of 10 are going to come back to limiting beliefs. That's why what you're talking about is so relevant.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Imposter syndrome, definitely. That's one big limiting belief. And I have actually quite a lot of entrepreneurs in my one-on-one practice when I facilitate with people, and they have challenges with recruiting people that are good enough and that are different than them, because they have limiting beliefs about other people. Or they have challenges with balancing their work life and their private life, because they feel that they always have to be on 24/7. That's a limiting belief. I think most of their clients will completely understand it if they are not responding in the middle of the night to a message. But it's a limiting belief. A lot of entrepreneurs, especially people who are starting, at least that's what I see in my practice, they feel that they have to be always there and always respond quickly, because otherwise they might not get the work or their client might not be happy. I even once had an entrepreneur who said, if my phone is ringing and I see the name of a client, my first thought is, what have I done wrong? And they had a lot of fear about that. And then they answered the phone. And usually it was, hey, how are you? I had a question. Nothing wrong at all. But their first thought was, I am coming from a belief like I'm not good enough, or who am I that I can, imposter syndrome, whatever it is. If your first thought when a client calls is fear, that's not setting the right energy to talk to your clients. So if you transform that, you open the world to much more work, probably better relationships, and more ease in your mind.
Oh,
So good.
I have to laugh because that literally just happened to me like a couple of weeks ago. I dropped a big ball for one of our clients and I was feeling so guilty. And then they left me like a minute and a half voice note. And I was just assuming immediately that they were telling me off because I dropped this ball, even though we fixed it as soon as we figured it out that we had done this mistake. And I was so afraid. I told Vicky, I'm like, I can't even listen to the voice note, Vicky. I'm so like, and I just ignored it for like 3 days, and it was like over a weekend. Then I finally listened to the voice note, and it was actually offering us more work to do. They're like, oh, we've got this other thing we want you guys to do. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Like it totally hit me. And I have to laugh about it now because it seems so ridiculous. But in the moment, it was me. It was me worrying,
Yeah.
had my limiting belief. I screwed up. I made this big mistake. I upset this client. And I had all that on me. And meanwhile, it was just like, hey guys, what's going on? I have this other project. Would you like to do it?
And I
Yeah.
hadn't even noticed the thing that Laura thought was a
No.
big mistake. It was a slight oversight. It wasn't a massive thing at all. And you were freaking. I remember it. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. And not in the moment. It wasn't brilliant for you, of course. But when I heard that voicemail, I had to giggle because it is we paint ourselves into a corner, or into a picture of what isn't true. It's all limiting beliefs. What about money as a limiting belief? Let's talk about that for a sec.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. People have huge limiting beliefs around money. You see people who have more than enough, who are always afraid that there won't be enough. And you see people who can't keep money. They keep spending it. They can't save. And typically that is limiting beliefs from their childhood somewhere. They have taken over behaviors from their parents or other important people in the early days of life. So the whole idea that there isn't enough will, in a way, stop you from going forward. If you are afraid that there won't be enough money, what are your actions going to be? Well, if you truly believe that there is abundance and there is enough for all of us, then you will be much relaxeder, and there's probably a much bigger chance that you will be able to actually earn money. And I would even go so far that if you are not busy with money anymore, it becomes even more relaxed and you become more flexible in life because you are mostly busy, for example, with solving problems for clients, as opposed to, oh, I need to earn a certain amount of money to get my bonus at the end of the year. But that client won't like your focus on money. It will like your focus on their challenge and their issue. And then, at least in my experience, you will make your internal goals without a problem, typically.
Mm. And there's
Yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Vicky. Good question.
No, I was just going to say it's a fascinating field, and you reminded me about a limiting belief that I recently became aware of, and I think it must have been with me my whole life, and it's such an intangible belief, which is so for ever since Laura and I have known each other, she's known that I've had this bugbear that I'm worried that, my final day, I'll feel like I didn't live to my full potential. I didn't do the thing. I didn't fill my cup. I didn't cross the line. That's always been my thing. And what's so interesting recently, well, it's interesting to me, is that what I realized was that I have this limiting belief that I'm not allowed to take the prize.
Mm.
So I race, and race or otherwise, I'll play the game. I'll be in the game. But all the while, there's something in the background that's saying, I'm not allowed the prize. So why am I going to put in all my effort for something that's never going to happen? Isn't that wild? I think that's wild. We're getting really personal here. And then I think I took care of that. And then I came to realize, oh, I'm allowed the prize. I'm not allowed to keep it.
Ooh.
Ooh. So now I've had to work through all that as well.
And this is the beauty of a self-realization path, isn't it? That you start to understand what is making you tick, what is making you go forward, and the limits that our subconscious has or that you have, because your subconscious is not a separate entity, it's part of you. And then once you realize what's holding you back, you are able, and that's what I do with PSYCH-K, but then you are able to work through that, as opposed to keeping that feeling till your last day and you still don't have the prize, or it's gone again because you weren't allowed to keep it. Yeah. Yeah, and if people if people come to me in my practice, we would typically work with that in the here and now, and well, ask the PSYCH-K wonder question: what do you want instead? And then out of that comes a supporting belief statement. We call that a goal statement, and that's what we integrate in the subconscious mind. So that your subconscious, and my wife and I like to compare the subconscious with an elephant. It's really strong and it's powerful, and once it has found a way, it will keep walking, no matter what it sees on its path. And that's good as long as it walks the path that you want it to walk. So changing your beliefs in supporting beliefs will change the course of the elephant into the direction where you want your life to be going to.
Yeah. Moving an elephant is not easy.
Nope, no. And what I see, apologies, what I see, because we compare the conscious mind, and psychologists say 95% of the time we live from our subconscious and 5% from the conscious mind. And we compare the subconscious mind, therefore, with a small hummingbird. It's very flexible and it's a beautiful bird, can fly forward and backward, all directions, but it's not so strong. So if you try with your conscious mind to undo certain subconscious behaviors, it's like a hummingbird trying to change the course of an elephant. That's costing a lot of energy. And then when you do that the whole day through, at the end of the day, you're exhausted. Or you are sick a couple of times a year because it just takes too much energy. So working on yourself and going into a self-realization journey is also about becoming healthier, becoming more relaxed, having more energy, being more in flow with life itself.
And I'd say being more resilient, right?
Yes.
That's where some resilience
Yes,
comes
for
from.
sure. Yes.
Very important. I have one question. I don't know, it's an easy to answer question, but where does our limiting beliefs even come from? Like, are they programmed from, the parents? Are they things that we've heard? Are they things we've experienced? Or is it just a big combination of all of that?
Yeah, probably the latter, Laura. But as I mentioned, the first 7 years, our life script is written. We are fully open to all experiences, everything that people around us say and do. It's also where we copy behavior from our parents. If one of your parents has an issue with money, there is a good chance that you or one of your siblings will, or maybe many, all of your siblings, but will have a challenge with money later in life. You see that if you look at families, you see that certain behaviors are with the father, the son, and their son again. I know families where there is a lot of naysaying. It's always no to the children. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. And what you then see is that when those children grow up, there's a lot of no's in their vocabulary. So in those first 7 years, the people around us write your life script because you yourself are too young to write it yourself. The rules you learn from home. There is, even before you are born, there is research that when you were in the womb of your mother, that the behavior of your mother and your father, and are you in a loving environment or are you in a more brutal environment, that has an influence on the child that is not born yet. So it's all those messages, implicit messages or direct messages, that ultimately make us who we are. And that's where limiting beliefs start as well.
Yeah, it's
And
tough to hear that as a parent. I mean, because you worry, right? I think I asked that question because I am a parent of children, and I think about what programming are they receiving, either from me or their father or their other grandparents, like where it could all be coming from. I think as a parent, we worry very much about the kids and not passing down our own limiting beliefs onto them. It's a challenge, but I think what
yes,
I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from you saying is that a big part of self-development journey that especially entrepreneurs go on is that we get to unpack these things, and then we get to make a different path for ourselves. And that's really where the value of coaching, therapy, and other avenues where somebody can look in from the outside and give you some perspective. So thank you for what you do. I think it's really important to be able to help people see and make the change they want to make in their life, so that they can break through limiting beliefs and reach the goals that they have, the success they hope for, the wealth they desire, whether that's actual financial wealth or lifestyle wealth, whatever that is for them. I think it's really, really great what you do. Thank you for that.
yes, thank you.
And if I may offer a word of condolence, I believe the greatest gift we have as adults is to unpack for ourselves the limiting beliefs that we collected as children. So, if children didn't have that experience from 0 to 7, then they wouldn't really grow to be fully adult, fully self-governing, self-regulated, learning their own lessons on their journey. I genuinely think that there's always going to be something, even if you were the perfect parent, there's going to be something that gets interpreted by that 7-year-old, and there's
Yes.
always going to be that something to unpack.
Yeah, and what I really love about the PSYCH-K method is that it is never about guilt. It is only about how are things now. And if I have a certain challenge with something, let's solve it. It's never about looking back, that's what your father did, that's what your mother did. Oh, that uncle, yeah, we know. Let's go talk to him. It's never about who is guilty. It's only about what do you have now? You don't like that? Let's change it. Let's look forward. Let's be focused on what it is you do want in life as opposed to what you don't want. Because what you don't want is what most people are already pretty good at. So don't worry too much about your children. Just look forward to what it is you do want, and they will do the same in their lives.
Absolutely.
And the same for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it is. And hey, entrepreneurship is a journey, and we love to frame it as such, because, and we've always said on this podcast, you learn so much from this journey because you have to develop yourself. Like you said, you had the skills to create a product once upon a time, but you didn't have the skills to sell it at that time. So then you had to learn that skill, but that takes courage, understanding of self and what feels good and doesn't feel good. A lot of people think sales is icky and, but if you don't have that skill, you have a great product, that's a huge challenge you have to overcome and figure it out for yourself. So nothing like entrepreneurship to get on that journey of self-realization.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
This has been a journey. Thank you, Martijn. I think it's time to share key takeaways. What do you say? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I can start with I picked up that the magic question of PSYCH-K is what do you want instead? And I think that's such a powerful question. That's a great takeaway for me. And that 75%, 95%, I should say, of what we do is run by the subconscious. That's massive.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. I mean, I definitely picked up, and I think this sort of feels good to just know that everyone has limiting beliefs, that we're not alone when we think we're not good enough or we're not capable enough, or, we're stuck in scarcity mindset or whatever it is, imposter syndrome, that it's just very normal, and get the help we need to start unpacking that. And then looking towards, as you said, supporting beliefs. I really like that. I think that changes the meaning of that. the owner of my time again. I like when you said that, for the shift between going from corporate back to entrepreneurship, you became the owner of your time. That sounds so powerful. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs should take that. Like, there's something so amazing of just about ownership and owning our lives and having control. And that's what entrepreneur really gives you. It's such a powerful thing. And then partnerships. That's something that's been very important on your journey. Very important part of Vicky and I's journey is the power of partnerships, and something that entrepreneurs should consider, because a lot of entrepreneurs start out just, on their own solo journey, which can be really difficult. But having a partner in some way really can make a difference, whether it's a relationship partner or a friendship partner or mentorship, a coach, someone in your life that can kind of help you along the path really does make a huge difference. So yeah, thank you. Those are my takeaways.
Thank you both. If there's one, well, maybe not takeaway, but one more thing to add, I think it's important that we all follow our heart. And especially as an entrepreneur, you have that opportunity to truly make your wishes come true. So follow your heart in everything you do, develop yourself, and enjoy what you're doing. As a bit of a takeaway, that would be mine.
That's beautiful. And that's a perfect way to wrap up this episode. Follow your heart. It really is important. And because the journey is a challenging one, when you believe in it and you believe in what you're doing and it comes from the heart, I think that really comes through everything that you do. And it kind of makes everything a little bit easier. So thank you. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been a fantastic one.
Thank you both.